This is a 12-inch MacBook from 2015, and it's an engineering marvel that was ahead of its time. In fact, too far ahead of its time. It's equal parts brilliant and awful. But that said, I always wanted one, and I recently picked up this very nice used model from eBay for the princely sum of £200. And for that price, it even came with a brand new battery. And it's been interesting to play with this machine, which wasn't exactly offering top-tier performance in 2015, let alone 2024, but just imagine what it could have been. Apple decided to go with a fanless design to create this ludicrously thin laptop. And that probably wasn't a great choice in 2015 because the only real option was a dual-core Intel Core M running at 1.1, 1.2 or even 1.3 gigahertz. And I can only assume that the M stands for mediocre. But what if Apple had waited until they could slot the rather better Apple Silicon M chips into this chassis? I recently watched Marques Brownlee reviewing Apple's new Vision Pro, and something he said kind of rang true of this device as well. About the Vision Pro, he said Apple is building tomorrow's ideas with today's tech. I think you could have said the same thing of this MacBook in 2015. And the dreams of an ultra-thin, ultra-portable 12-inch MacBook running Apple Silicon are pretty unlikely to be fulfilled. Apple is a company that doesn't seem to want to dwell on its past, to the point where they actually seem to ignore their heritage. The recent 40-year anniversary of the Mac passed by without so much as a mention from Apple. So you can't exactly see the company revisiting this little machine. Anyway, what's the appeal? Many folks won't get it because they prefer a larger notebook with a larger screen, me included. But where the MacBook 12-inch shines is as a secondary, ultra-portable, take-it-anywhere machine. I used to have a MacBook Air 11-inch for exactly this reason. It was ideal for taking on trips, lightweight and small so it doesn't take up much luggage space, and a small enough footprint to use on an airplane tray table. I also used mine whenever I had to do work in a data center because it was just so easy to carry around. So the MacBook 12-inch kind of took that concept from the 11-inch MacBook Air and made it smaller and lighter with a slightly larger display, which was Retina. And remember that at the time this 12-inch MacBook was released, the MacBook Air range didn't yet have the Retina display, and it still sported those large aluminium bezels. Of course, later on, the MacBook Air inherited the same design features. I've got one of those here. It's a 2018 model. And if you place these machines side by side, you can see just how compact the 12-inch MacBook is in comparison. With this cutting-edge design came the inevitable compromises. There's just no room for ports because Apple had to fill up this tiny chassis with as much battery as possible. So you get just one USB-C port, which is only running USB at 5 gigabits per second. You could use a dongle to adapt it to Type A USB, and this was really the beginning of the Apple dongle life era, much ridiculed at the time. After all, you also needed this single USB-C port to charge the laptop. And there's no Thunderbolt here, but it could output DisplayPort 1.2 over USB-C. And that means you can connect a UHD 4K display at 60 Hz. And you'll notice that Apple also bravely left in the 3.5mm headphone jack. And then we come to the keyboard. Now, fitting a full-size keyboard into this tiny chassis means that Apple had to come up with a new design. Enter the butterfly keyboard. Loved by some, hated by many. I personally don't mind it at all, and I've not encountered many problems with this generation of keyboards, but plenty of other people did suffer and needed repairs and replacements. But it's fair to say Apple has done some kind of voodoo with this, just like they did with the 11-inch Air, because you just don't feel like you're working with such a small computer. Until you want to play some audio, that is, because naturally you can't fit amazing speakers in this tiny frame, so they're pretty tinny and just about adequate, which is more than can be said for the truly awful 480p webcam. Well, this sucks. Probably better just to switch it off and pretend your laptop is broken rather than have the embarrassment of the grainy, tiny image. This particular model is the entry-level launch model from early 2015. It features that paltry 1.1 GHz Intel Core M 5Y31 CPU. If you think of Apple's M1 as a V8 supercar, then you can think of this M chip as a moped going up a steep hill. The only RAM option was 8 GB, which was nice at a time when the MacBook Air still shipped with 4. And storage is 256 gigs or 512. Not particularly rapid compared to modern SSDs, but it was good for the time. You also get Bluetooth 4 and AC Wi-Fi. And there's a 39.7 watt-hour battery in a package that weighs just 2 pounds or 0.92 kilograms. It was available in silver, space grey, and this lovely gold finish that I have here. Now, this early 2015 model is now considered obsolete, and officially it can't run any OS past Big Sur. But of course there are ways around that, and I'll explore that in a future video. But let's just complete the model history by talking about the next two releases that Apple made before they canned this product. There's the early 2016 model, and that introduced a new rose gold finish to add to the other three finishes, and offered a choice between a 1.1 GHz Core M3 and a 1.2 GHz Core M5, or optionally a 1.3 GHz Core M7. Sounds impressive. They weren't, but they were an improvement over the previous generation. They are still dual-core CPUs though, struggling to live life without any cooling fans. RAM remained at 8 GB, soldered to the board, naturally, just like the storage, which again was a choice of 256 or 512 GB. Though now the SSDs were connected via PCIe 3.0, so they are a little bit quicker. And Apple somehow managed to cram a bit more capacity into the battery, now a 41.4 watt-hour capacity, without increasing weight. This particular version is not considered obsolete yet, but it's not supported past Monterey officially. And then we have the final model, which appeared in 2017 with the same color choices. Though partway through its life, the gold and rose gold were replaced with a single new gold choice, which was a bit pink. And that tragic 480p webcam never got touched. The CPU choices were the next generation of Intel's M for mediocre range, or new chips which were labelled Core i5 and Core i7. But don't be fooled. They might share a name with the much better laptop and desktop counterparts, but these were not the same at all. I could tell you the speeds here, but I'm just going to put them up on the screen and let you know that they're all just different grades of slow. RAM again was 8 GB, but if you paid Apple obscenely more money, they would instead solder in 16 GB for you. The storage options didn't change, but there were upgrades elsewhere. Bluetooth 4.2 for starters, and perhaps more importantly, the improved second generation Butterfly keyboard made an appearance. The 2017 model can take up to macOS 13 Ventura, though it is possible to get Sonoma running through OpenCore Legacy Patcher. In fact, all of them can do that, and they can all run Windows 10 or Linux. This laptop could have been so much more if Apple had been able to move to ARM CPUs a bit faster. Despite being 9 years old, this looks great, and for all of my mocking of the speed, it is actually perfectly usable. This one's been kept very tidy by the previous owner, and it has a screen protector on. And I think that's a wise choice because this era of MacBooks suffered from delamination of the anti-reflective coating on the screen. I have taken the protector off, and ironically it only removed the coating where it had been stuck down, but it doesn't look that bad at all. But I've chosen to put the screen protector back on, and I'm going to leave it like that. The SSD that's inside this laptop is in great shape as well. It's only had 11 terabytes written to it during its life, so it's easily going to outlast this machine. And as I keep saying on the channel, that's the case for the vast majority of people. So as stupid as it is to solder on an SSD, it's not quite the disaster that the Apple haters want you to believe. Now naturally, running Big Sur in 2024 is going to present you with the occasional issue. Take Microsoft 365 for example. You can't use the current apps, but you can download fully functional older versions. And the online versions of those apps won't run in Safari on this notebook, but you can download another browser like Firefox, and they work fine. Battery life, even with a brand new battery, isn't all day unless you're doing only very light tasks. And the problem these days is that even tasks which previously might have been considered light are now using much more resources. Developers get lazy because we keep buying ever more powerful machines, so there's little incentive to optimize for slower hardware. And the modern web can be particularly taxing for older hardware. It is usable, but it has an effect on battery life and system responsiveness. This paltry 3.5 watt, 1.1 GHz dual-core CPU might seem like it could never cope, but it does have the ability to boost up to 2.4 GHz, or drop as low as 600 MHz to save battery. And it might only have 2 cores, but it does have hyper-threading. So let's run the obligatory Geekbench, starting with Geekbench 5, which is perhaps a slightly fairer test. And it scores 610 for single-core performance, which isn't horrendous, and just 1149 for multi-core, which sort of is. But then what can you expect from a dual-core CPU? Let's move to Geekbench 6, which of course includes tests for things like machine learning, which are specific to modern chips. So the results don't really indicate the true reference point for everyday computing tasks on older machines. Amazingly though, the scores are 772 for single core, which is actually about the same as a 6-core Xeon from the 2013 Mac Pro. It's not that bad, and the multi-core score is 1338. Given the use case for MacBooks like these, think about it, they're predominantly used for single-core type tasks, things like basic office work, note-taking, email and web browsing. So this is actually still just about usable even today, and the plentiful RAM and storage helps things along. So why did I buy this computer? Well, of course, partly for the fun of playing with an iconic laptop. The channel, after all, is called Constant Geekery, not Constant Sensibility. And partly too because I always wanted one, even though I knew it wasn't a great machine. Sometimes the form factor is a big percentage of the overall desirability and usability of the machine. Just like an iMac is greater than the sum of its parts, so too is this little MacBook 12-inch. And I'm actually going to use mine exactly how I used to use my 11-inch MacBook Air, as an ultra-portable second machine for simple, on-the-go computing. It costs £200, so I can take it anywhere I like and not worry about it. And to keep it looking nice, I've even managed to find this official Apple leather sleeve. It's brand new old stock, didn't cost very much, and it looks great. I guess finally we should ask, should you buy one? Probably not, unless like me you get a kick out of playing with old tech. That said, if you can find a nice 2017 model, it'll probably have a little bit of life left in it yet, and it's a cheap way to get into the Mac ecosystem. But for the same price, you can probably get a newer and much better Intel MacBook Air 13-inch, so give that some thought as well. Well, there you have it. In a lot of ways, this was the best laptop Apple ever made. It broke down boundaries and it set new records for portability whilst remaining very usable. But also in many other ways, it's one of the worst laptops Apple made. It's that heady mix of brilliance and mediocrity that makes it so appealing to idiots like me. I hope you enjoyed this look at the MacBook 12-inch. What are your thoughts on this model? Did you have one? Did you want one? Be honest. And would you like to see something ultra portable again from Apple, perhaps with a cut down M chip in it? Or should this useless laptop with its potato webcam be consigned to the scrap heap of eternity? Let me know in the comments, and please take a moment to leave a thumbs up or down and maybe give that subscribe button a little tickle. And I'll see you again soon for some more geekery.